Fight of the true clanhead. Megumi vs Naoya is a fight we would have loved to see, and with Naoya set to Shibuya to kill Megumi, what would have happened if they had clashed? So, I will scale Naoya, then scale Megumi, and then say how this potential fight would go. First, Naoya's curse technique projection sorcery is which then they move in 24 frames a second and build up speed while using their curse technique. When touching an opponent's palm, they are then forced to follow the same rules, and if they move incorrectly, they'll be frozen in place. This makes the technique very annoying and very dangerous as you overwhelm stronger opponents with speed just based on the stipulations of the curse technique, and while building up speed, they can chain combos as shown in the Nobito vs Dagon fight and Naoya vs Maki fight. So speed. Naoya's speed is mainly used with projection sorcery, and because of this we don't have any base speed feats for Naoya, but that is okay because his main use of combat derives from his technique of projection sorcery. We saw him blitz Choso originally at the start of the contest when using projection sorcery to send him into the wall. We also see he can use it with a small knife he carries, but he also used it to attack Choso. He can also move 24 frames in a second with his curse technique, and this allows him for some insane feats. He can send 11 punches in a second shown with his fight with Maki, and can reach subsonic speed at the peak of projection sorcery buildup. With his speed, then he also parries attacks and prepares for counterattacks, which makes him extremely versatile and able to counteract being overpowered in hand-to-hand combat. This was shown in his brief 2v1 versus Choso and Yuji, and he punches Yuji and has enough time to counter Choso and then to escape before they can react, showing how fast and dangerous projection sorcery can be used in fights. Moreover, with him being another projection sorcery user, we can infer, and this is my headcanon, he is at least relative to Nobito in speed, who was stated to be the fastest person behind Gojo. Action speed, human Naoya has barely any feats with this nature, and of his curse technique he's mostly on the offensive, but his biggest reaction feat is dodging the piercing blood from Choso when he caught him off guard, and according to the wiki, piercing blood reinforced with curse energy can reach the speed of sound, being a great reaction feat for Naoya. And now his attack power. His attack power comes directly from projection sorcery. With hitting subsonic speed, it will cause significant damage to an opponent. He was easily overpowering Maki for majority of the fight, with sending her to the walls, causing her to bleed, and with a HR body who narratively have been implied to be arguably the most durable in the series. Moreover, he was bodying Choso for the majority of the fight, as well as until red stack he could not damage Naoya or keep up with Naoya. He also has a small combat knife he uses, which was shown in the fight against Choso, which caused him to cut and then make Choso bleed, in tandem with his projection sorcery can become a troublesome combination. His attack power is hard to scale, but we infer from hitting high speeds people will take significant damage. It can be heavily boosted by Nobito's destruction of Dagon before the domain. Moreover, with the fact that it's more of a constantly overwhelming with them constantly building up speed, meaning they will be able to constantly overpower people until they finally reach the peak speed of projection sorcery. Now I want to clarify, I'm not comparing Nobito and Naoya, because I know their curse energy reinforcement is different, but in my opinion, they should be somewhat relative with their curse technique usage. Now durability and stamina. Naoya's durability is extremely difficult to scale because due to the nature of his fights, he was not touched by Maki until Maki sent him 6 feet under with the final punch, but Maki is also a HR user, so I don't believe that can show that he has bad durability. Moreover, the fight with Choso he got hit with Supernova, which not only has an area of effects with the blood, it also poisons the individual, meaning it's very difficult to find out how durable he is, meaning a lot of assumptions will be made for the durability argument. His stamina, well, I have no idea, and he ends up getting one shot, but that boy do be running, so I'm guessing he's somewhat got good stamina. And now we go on to Megumi. Megumi has the other inherited curse technique from the Zenin family, which allows him to summon multiple Shikigami through the medium of shadows, and he can store objects, and he has 6 Shikigami currently shown to us. 7 of them being Rabbit Escape, Nue, Divine Dog Totality, Great Serpent, which is the one that is dead, hence why I'm saying only 6, and then Toad, War's Unknown Abyss, and then Mahurago, who would not be used in this matchup. He also has access to an incomplete domain Chimera Shadow Garden. When used in a gymnasium, he can make a makeshift barrier to close the contents of his domain expansion. This will allow him to use his body like a domain, in which instead of a sure hit, gain a 120% buff to his stats, so more than regular curse techniques lapse, and lapse would be the maximum output of a technique, which he can summon multiple Shikigami and clones of himself. He can also use from his regular curse technique usage to hide into the shadows and to disappear into the shadows, giving him a lot more utility in fights. So speed. Megumi has barely any speed feats, but the best we can use is his team up with pre-awakened Maki in the Goodwill event against Hanami. We have no idea whether Maki was holding back, but we know Yuji was faster than Goodwill Maki, who was stated to be a physical monster who was slightly slower than Goodwill Yuji. So for this we can say his speed is pretty good, but it could be more of Maki keeping in tune with Megumi for the team up. He was also in sync with Yuji in their team up in Shibuya, be another example of them just being in sync, but it gives us a good idea that he can at least keep up with two people who are deemed to be fast for their respective sorcerers of their age group. His reaction speed. Megumi has one of the best reaction speed feats with diverting Toji's lunge in Shibuya. We know he was getting blitzed for the most part, and I believe the statement of him saying he reminds him of Sukuna is to explain the feeling he felt being overpowered in speed. But even with that, he diverted a life-threatening blow with his shadow, indicating he can react to people much faster than him with his great utility. So attack power. Megumi's biggest damage comes from an overwhelming people with his domain expansion and then Divine Dog Totality, which is strong enough to wound the strongest disaster curse in Hanami. We also see it completely cut Reggie in half, meaning Naoya would have no chance against Divine Dog Totality. A Max Elephant can be used to be summoned, it can end up weighing someone down, especially summoned in a domain. And the way will give someone an electric shock, which can be useful in a fight. He also embeds curse energy in a one-handed sword, which he used on the two earlier fighters before Reggie, and also had experience with Playful Cloud, but is not his choice of weapon. He lacks great AP, aside from Divine Dog, but in conjunction with his Shikigami, it becomes a very dangerous technique, especially in his domain expansion. He's also adept in hand-to-hand combat and can use it in unison of his shadows. His durability, he has elite durability, taking hits from Sukuna, being sent through buildings. He was in a suspended state of death from getting hit from Mahoraga. He did not die from a diverted hit from Toji, which ended up stabbing parts of his body. He ended up taking hits from Haruta. He could withstand huge amount of weight in his domain expansion when Reggie summoned the 3 cars, which totaled to 3.4 tons, showing his durability. And he also has insane stamina, summoning multiple Shikigami, a domain expansion tug of war with Dagon, and then to later summon Mahoraga in one night. Even in the Tokyo 2 colony, he fought multiple sorcerers before Reggie and expanded a lot of curse energy, having elite level stamina. Now, how would this fight go? Naoya is a stronger combatant, and from his fights he normally uses projection sorcery all of the time in combat. This makes it very difficult for Megumi to keep up, and with the vast speed differences it can end up being a one-sided fight. But one advantage to Megumi is Naoya's cocky nature. In the fight with Choso and Yuji, he would casually flex and begin to slowly up his speed because he thinks he's stronger. This allowed him to get caught off guard by Choso rather than a serious individual who would have finished the fight as soon as possible, and part of the reason he got caught off guard by the supernova. This means Megumi now has 3 outcomes to win. 1. By using his shadows to time when he uses projection sorcery to prevent his build-up and to finish him with Divine Dog Totality. With his great reaction feats, it won't be impossible for him to react to his early build-up before he builds up constant speed, and he will then be frozen from the effects of projection sorcery since he would have not followed the 24 frames. The only weakness to this scenario is that Naoya should be aware of the 10 shadows being involved with the Zenin clan, meaning he may subconsciously reinforce his footing with curse energy. But 2. He can use no way to fly away and try to keep the distance and lead Naoya to a closed space in which he can lead to outcome number 3, where he uses his domain expansion to overwhelm Naoya. With the constant clones and 120% buff to his curse technique, you can overpower him and make up for the huge speed differences by using Shikigami to interrupt his projection sorcery build-up, especially in an enclosed space. Things such as Max Effort will be far more useful in an enclosed space and will be a great win-con situation. Furthermore, with Megami's intellect, he could make up for the overarching speed differences in these scenarios, and I find a way to win against his respective Zenin clan rival. However, those are the only win cons I can see for Megami, and for the most part this matchup is not close, because projection sorcery is too difficult to deal with. Would constantly blitz him with speed, which will in turn lead Megami to lose as well, in the process can take out his Shikigami. Things such as Divine Dog Totality, I'm not sure whether they can survive the full brunt of the projection sorcery. In tandem with his assumed knowledge on the 10 shadows, you should have more than enough counters like he initially did with Piercing Blood for Choso, until he was caught off guard by the new technique of Supernova. Moreover, even if he uses no way to fly, we saw Naruto being able to use projection sorcery to gain airtime, meaning he can prevent him from running away, making very limited options for Megami to fight against. Also, with the domain needing him to be in an enclosed area, there's too many factors that go against Megami for him to win this clash, and would lead to Naoya overwhelming him pretty easily. Projection sorcery is an insanely broken technique, and if it took Maki multiple hits before figuring out the frames per second to counter Megami, even though Megami might be smart enough to be able to do it faster with his intellect, will he be able to time the attack in time to damage him is another argument, and which my assumption would honestly be no. One thing that could be a counter against Naoya is where Megami can use a shadow to divert his attack and cause him to get frozen in a similar manner where he used a shadow to divert Toji's initial lunge against him. But currently we have no idea how fast Toji is in comparison to projection sorcery, meaning a fully built up projection sorcery from Naoya should be too fast for even Megami to react. I know people might use the feat with Maki dodging Mark III, however I believe that's more of a reaction feat rather than travel speed, and I believe the travel speed that we've seen currently from Maki and Toji, there is nothing to indicate that they're necessarily faster than the full build up of projection sorcery. In conclusion, there are outcomes that Megami can win, but for the most part this matchup is not close, and Naoya has too much to take down my boy Megami. Gege, please say projection sorcery and give it to Utah.
Young millionaire mentality.